Hey y'all, my name is Matilda and you found my tutorial on how to make heavily textured art and how to use various different mediums. I'm so glad you're here. This is my third official tutorial, so I hope you like it. Right now on the screen, I'm showing you some heavily textured art I've made in the past. I'll also link in the description a video where I made a heavily textured abstract piece where I talk a little bit about artist thoughts behind that and how to do it. That video is quite a bit more low-key and stylized than this video. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed all that textured stuff, and we can go ahead and get started. So there's all different kinds of mediums that you can get, and most of them are usually considered for acrylic painting. There's all different kinds of brands. You can find them online or in the store. This is fiber paste, glass bead gel. I don't have any pumice gel, but basically these have glass beads in them, pumice beads in them, fibers in them. This is like a recycled material that has reharvested peat plastic in it. This is reharvested glass, walnut shells. I've used half dried out mediums to sculpt, as you can see in this piece on the screen. You never know what you can find to use for texture. I like to collect trash, so you can use all kinds of things to create texture. The most common one I use is modeling paste. Counterintuitively, texture could also be something that's hyper smooth. So I've used this before to use a palette knife to put it on my canvas and then sand it down with sandpaper later. I've also made my own fun textures by cutting them out with wood or sculpting them with clay. And of course then there's fiber arts, you can bring in beads, you can do all kinds of different textures. There's also a gloss gel medium, which is really great to use as a glue, and it dries completely clear. And it almost looks like resin. In the back of these canvases came these little micro pack things, and it says it's non-toxic dried clay. So you can just get really creative and use anything to create texture. Coffee grounds. Obviously these are like fruit bags, you know. You can cut up papers to make collage texture. Personally, I like to use glass bead gel after painting because it's so see-through and shiny. Or you can actually mix it with paint. You can also mix this modeling paste with paint. It will lighten your paint because it's white, so it'll make it more opaque and lighter in value. But it does make it so that your paint is rather thick. So you don't want to get too ahead of yourself making a bunch of textures with these mediums before you paint. You may want to paint as you're doing the textures, but it can be really fun to create textures with the modeling paste, say of like a bird, and then let it dry overnight, and then you can paint over it the next day. I'm going to do a little abstract pieces here, so I'm just going to go over top with all kinds of oil pastels just to create some really cool looking lines that might show through later, or they might get covered up. We'll give you this tip real quick. Sometimes we get really lazy about the edges of pieces, but if you have these thicker block canvases, it's definitely worth getting over the edge. I've heard it said that you should have a sneak peek of what the piece is going to be like on the edge before you get to the actual piece as you're walking down the hallway or something. Also recently someone just said to me that they loved how the texture of my work went all the way around the edges, and not all of them are like that, but this particular one they were talking about was. And so I'll take that bit of viewer feedback into my next work, and I'm going to make texture on all sides, which is going to really give it that more three-dimensional look. That being said, this piece I showed you earlier that's super textured, even though the texture is not on the side, it can't be framed because the texture goes all the way to the edge. So if you are trying to frame a piece, leave a half an inch or a quarter of an inch on the edge so that it can be framed. Or frame it first. And I'm going to be working on more than one piece at a time here. And voila, there they are. So I like to use a palette knife to spread the mediums. I find that to be the easiest to scoop them out and spread in various ways. So right now I'm using modeling paste. If you put it on in a thin layer, you'll be able to see what's underneath it. I like it because it takes away the texture of the canvas. And yes, you can sprinkle into it, but unless it's thick on there, it might not stick into it. You know, it's not like a glue. You gotta really embed it. And this doesn't dry see-through, but you can see that it is partially see-through. So you can do all kinds of textures with this. You can scrape it, you can go blop, blop, blop. Whatever that is, like a cake. It's a lot like icing. I'm not doing too much modeling paste on these because I have so many other mediums to work with. I'm mostly just using this modeling paste for that see-through look. And whereas I don't really find the other textures to come in handy in many paintings, modeling paste comes in handy in so many different sorts of paintings. So better to save it for that, because I mean I could always buy more, but I guess I'm a little more frugal with my painting supplies than I would like to be, but it's out of necessity. That is part of the reason I'm making these smaller pieces, is because smaller pieces sell quicker, easier, and people can afford them so much easier too. And then they're easier for me to lug around instead of the really big canvases all the time. Another way of making texture is that you can actually take this gloss gel and put it out on some plastic with inks or paints, and you can peel it up off of it. Okay, so this medium I've actually never used, and it has this odd film on top, which, like I said, just because it's not meant to be that way, that creates a half dried out medium sort of texture. I've never intentionally half dried out a medium, but can see how you would. So now this is really pretty because it's a different color. You could use this to create some kind of forest floor or something. I do tend to gravitate towards brighter colors, so I'll definitely try to use this in a forest floor at some point. So like right now, since this is a new medium, this is me experimenting, and that's really what it comes down to when you're making a heavily textured or any kind of artwork really, is that you just want to experiment with the different mediums that are available to you. If it does start to come off later on, I can always reattach it. So because this one is so colorful, it also might look really good after painting, so the color actually shows up. But I can also just leave it as is and paint around it too. So far, these are pretty fun. Since mine are abstract, I'm just making really random globs of texture, but obviously you can direct this more if you want, which does kind of require some maneuvering because like you don't have a ton of control with a palette knife, and it's very hard to control something that's got all these gritty things in it. And now I'm going to use fiber paste, which will be pretty good for squishing stuff into to hold it in place. Another tip, anytime you can tear things instead of cutting them with scissors is always better because you get more random. So just applying some netting from the fruits, packaging, I just stick it into the squishy medium, and once that dries, it will hold it in place with hopefully some pretty cool textures. Well, that's enough for one day. Gonna need to let this layer dry before adding in more textures, which I definitely want to add more. But if I keep handling it while it's still wet, it might become a little frustrating because I'll mess up what I've already done. Plus, I want to save some fun for another day. I also just squished that CD piece into the texture, and that goop will hold it in place. You can see we got some really interesting stuff happening. So now I've allowed these to dry overnight. Typically with these thicker mediums, it is going to take a while to let them dry, so overnight's easier, but now you can see I can handle them without messing up what I've already done if I want to add in more textures, which I do. Next, I'm going to use this reharvested peat plastic. It looks pretty gloppy, which is perfect for what I'm looking for. You can hear it. Upon opening this reharvested glass, I see that the glass is all different colors. So I'm going to save this to put on after I put the paint on, so that it can dry clear and you can see through. So again, I've never used this medium before, so it's all about trial and error plus practicing. It is really hard to get in all the little crevices with the paintbrush. Like if you look at it from different angles, you'll see where you've missed painting pieces. I'm sure spray paint would work really well to get in there, but I just want to have more control over what's happening, such as with a paintbrush. As an artist, using these kind of materials kind of desensitizes me to chemicals and waste. I don't really like wasting all this plastic stuff. So there is a company making all natural materials called All Natural Earth Paint in the US, and you can use their stuff to mix your own texturing mediums, such as using coffee grounds or dirt. I've even glued pine needles into my work before. You can really get creative without having to waste chemicals and things. It is fun to mess around and play with it, but just being conscious of the planet. But I always do say that it's not just on us. Like, you can't feel guilty if you are doing things that hurt the planet, because those of us who care a lot, it can be kind of painful and we feel guilty about it, but it is those bigger companies and just systems at large that, if we can change our thinking, will change everything at large. Particularly just taking care of ourselves, which will overflow into taking care of the planet. I was making sure to give special attention to the corners and edges, because that's going to break up that straight line and make it look like it's more textured than just if it was on the side and the front. But getting those corners and these corner edges really are going to add to the texture of it. Then also leaving spaces that are flat, particularly in between the different textures, because those are going to give the contrast between the textured and the smooth, which is going to make it look even more textured. Furthermore, I'm also thinking about the composition just slightly. Like, I have texture on one side, but maybe leaving some empty space without texture, or creating lines. You're just thinking about getting that flow of the piece. At least with this abstract stuff, if you're making texture for any old regular piece, you're obviously going to use the subject matter's composition. When it comes to abstract composition, you're mostly thinking about lines and shapes and flow, the way that your eye can move through the piece, and having that balance of busyness and emptiness. Okay, I'm going to let these dry overnight, because like I said, if I keep handling them, that peat plastic's going to fall off. I guess I got to be slow and patient with this process. It could take multiple days to get the layers up to the point where I like them. Now I choose colors. I like to use more frayed brushes because getting into all of the nooks and crannies can really ruin your brushes. And it's not like I need to have anything super precise when I'm making these abstracts. I've got my cacao and I'm ready to go. This kind of project is really good to use with old paint. Like you can see this one's getting kind of granulated. Might as well use it up. I've already ordered more anyways. I've actually had to be away from this project for a month because I went on a van trip down south to the beach for my sister's wedding. Just made a bunch of art, but I didn't bring these pieces. If I finish these in the next few days, I'm gonna show them at an upcoming art festival. Abstract can be pretty fun and relaxing because there's no rules. You're just slopping it on there. Any which way, please. Yeah, so like holding the canvas at all the different angles allows you to be able to see in to those nooks and crannies and be able to cover up various things. So you can see inside of here the white where I didn't actually get the paint in there. So I must admit that I feel a little bit of a scarcity around paint. I actually just ordered a bunch more and it was like $200, so I took some things out of my cart, so it ended up being $130. And with this kind of project, you go through paint really quickly, and my usual style is more like, it's maximalist but also minimalist in the fact that I don't use so much paint because I'm getting really into the details of line work, or stretching out the paint by adding a lot of water because I usually paint on an absorbent surface, or adding in a lot of white because I love pale colors. So what I'm going to do at this point is switch up using my more expensive acrylic paints and use a natural earth paint, which are some paints that I'm wanting to use up anyways, and they're kind of gritty as is, so that would be a much better option for me. I don't like feeling scarcity in any way, especially around art supplies, but it is a reality at this point in my life when I'm still working towards being an artist that's so well known. You can just spend all your money on paint. But that's something I'm still working on at this time in my life, is just having the supplies needed. So now I've decided to get out my natural earth paint, which are paints that I actually mixed from a pigment myself, which was like with a grinder mortar thing, whatever you call them. But the paints don't really work as nice as my other paints. They're great because they're good for the planet, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, but they just don't suit my specific style. But obviously they're really good for other people, so I've been wanting to use these up, and this is the perfect project, and now I don't have that pit in my stomach being like, oh no, all my nice paints. These are nice too, though. I'm gonna have to get over that fear of using up too much paint, that's for sure. So this paint separated, so I'm just mixing the other paint into the clear medium. And it's creating this really interesting marbling. And this one, so it's really turning out better than expected to use this paint. Currently all of the colors are kind of starting to look similar. and I imagine this piece like a rainbow. So when I go in and add the details, that's probably when I'll start really differentiating the different colors. Each block will have its own kind of color scheme. Right now I'm just working on covering up the whites. The nice thing about this paint is that I don't have to worry about it getting on my skin because it's non-toxic, and I'm definitely getting it all over me. My sister was here making art with me for a bit. She actually said that this natural earth paint was right on topic for this series, since I'm adding in trash, kind of an environmentally friendly sort of focus. I think this is a classic example of overworking your art. Alright, my art is accomplishing something because I'm laughing. So these turned out freaking amazing. I love them. You can hear the birds singing. They're super sick, I think. I don't know. I'm gonna paint them a little bit more and give them some squiggles. Then I'm gonna put more of the see-through, like medium. They're pretty darn fun. No controlling what this paint did, so it was just like super fun. This is really off style for me. This isn't my usual art style, but it's fun to do every once in a while. I just can't help myself when it comes to making art. My sister thought I should leave this one more white, and I really like it. Now I'm going back to using these other paints. I'm gonna put some swigglies on here, painting out in nature. I'm not gonna video it because my tripod is not currently with me. So something you can do with a heavily textured piece is get some paint on your palette knife and then run it across textured, and it hits the highest points, which ends up looking really cool. Now if you want, you can do like me. I like to paint the textured pieces highest points, so it kind of looks like that color was laid on as that glob. In other words, it looks like the glob was put on as a purple here. In a sense, I mean, it's maybe not the easiest thing to explain. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. But yeah, just painting these ridges. That's what I like to do with the textures. I find it really mindless and healing, like a balm, just to follow what's already there without having to think about it. Actually had an emotional breakdown today, and I wanted to paint this happy violin fiddler dancing. All of a sudden, everything changed. And so, long story short, I'm happy that I have something very low-key for my mental health to work on right now. Something that doesn't require me to be happy, even though I am happy. But there's a lot of pressure when painting a happy character to kind of match that energy, and I think that's why it can be healing to see that ideal desire and behavior play out. But this is low pressure, low key, no pressure, just move colors around kind of expression. That doesn't require me to be or feel any certain way. which is really relaxing and relieving and just giving me permission to exist regardless of how I feel. Okay, they are finally done, and there is a lot of details on there. It actually took forever to put all of the details on every single one of these because there's 12 of them. But yeah, sorry I didn't video it, but essentially it's just swigglies. Swigglies to me are some of the easiest, mindless, most relaxing thing to paint. Man, I actually really like these. I'm trying to get better about signing my art. So you can definitely see these signatures. It was challenging to find a spot to sign them. I think I should have found the spot to sign them first. Wow, I love that right there. Just because there's so much going on, I didn't want the signature to take away from what was there, but also I need to be able to see it, so I refrained from putting them on the side of the canvas. But yeah, sorry I didn't video these details for you. It just was taking a step back from the camera. Actually taking a step back from my YouTube entirely. Just not finding it to be the best return on my time, or it being very natural interest. Like, it's fun, but I don't think it's something that I want to continue doing long term, at least at the algorithm's pace. I'll just post videos when I feel like it, just like I have for the last 6 years. Look at this beautiful place I'm painting in. This is actually where I grew up. Trees, willow trees. Look at that mess. And then I just put that last layer of medium on them to add a little extra texture, and they were complete after I put wires on them, etc. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to buy one, they're available on my website, link in description. And again, thanks for watching the video. I hope you got something out of it and can get to work yourself.